Go.
Everything I do, every decision I make in life comes down to freedom. Trying to be like someone else is not what works for me. And so my wife and I actually started an event here in our town called the Idaho Business Summit. I wanted to have everybody in my town to have that same opportunity. No reason. I try to help people. I try to help educate people. Right. So I always helped people naturally.
Hey, everybody. So we have a very special guest here today. Sennett is not only someone that I admire in terms of the real estate space, he's also in my accountability pod. He is a coach in the Jake and Gino community and has done multiple deals previously on his own, syndicated big deal. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sennett. Hey, Sennett, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Alex. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I want to thank you for being on the podcast, Sennett. Before we dive deep into the weeds of what you actually do, tell me more about how you got to doing what you're doing and why are you doing what you're doing today?
The why is something that I really am interested in talking about, and especially on your podcast specifically. And the why is all about freedom for me. Everything I do, every decision I make in life comes down to freedom. And I have intentionally made certain decisions in my life or not made certain decisions in my life to avoid things that would make me less free. I want to be free with my money. I want to be free with my health. I want to be free with my time. I want to be free with my location. Everything about that comes down to freedom. But I obviously didn't start there. There were times in my life where I was the opposite of free, which is exactly what I want to avoid. Right? So you go back into the history of my life, I can tell you 4 or 5 times that really stick out that I couldn't make my own decisions. And that's something I never want to have again.
When you say, a lot of times when someone tells me they want freedom, right? Mm-hmm. And it's exactly what you said, is there were times in your life where you felt like you didn't have the freedom. Give us a little bit more detail, if you will, on the specifics. And you don't have to say all 4 or 5, right? Yeah, sure. But the 1 or 2 that were the most impactful in your life, where every time maybe there's a struggle or there is a obstacle, you think back to that one event and you tell yourself, because of that, this is why we got to go for it. Like, what would that event be?
Yeah. Well, two of them come to mind. And let's go back to the early, the childhood age, first couple of jobs and that kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And first, let me just say just a little tidbit. I've really always been an entrepreneur, and there's stories I can tell of times when I was the kid that was selling things out of their locker in grade school and junior high and things like that. But we won't go into too much of that. But just know that I've always kind of had that taste, and part of that is because I like the freedom that it allows me to do. And the biggest challenge is when I've had a job, a W-2 job that I didn't have any control over. Growing up, I had a lot of money struggles and didn't have a lot of financial freedom when I was younger. And the one piece that really sticks out in my mind all the time is when I did finally get a job, a regular old job that I didn't know what to do. I actually opened a Taco Bell, which we'll avoid the detail of me working in Taco Bell.
That I did not know.
Yeah, my very first W-2 job that was actually like a career corporate thing was Taco Bell. I opened the first Taco Bell in our town.
Wow.
And the thing that sticks out in this is I got a paycheck, a physical copy check in my hand, and I didn't know what to do with it, Alex.
Wow.
So I walked up to my mom. And I said, Mom, here's my paycheck. What do I do with this thing?
Yeah.
And the thing that stands out is my mom looked at this paycheck and she started to tear up a little bit. And she said, Senate, this check's bigger than mine. And that moment is really when I figured out that I grew up poor.
Right.
I don't know how old I was, 14, 15, 16, I could have been 16, had to be 15. And my very first job, I made more money on my paycheck than my mom. Later I figured out, there was deductions on my mom's stuff like health insurance and some things like that. The actual check was bigger. But that moment impacted me. And I decided then that I needed to do everything I could to make as much money as I could so that I could have freedom from my finances. Right? That I wouldn't have to make decisions based on money.
Right.
And so that really, really majorly impacted me financially. Fast forward several years, I'm going to skip a lot of really good stuff, but my next major, in fact, one of my only major W-2 jobs, I managed a very large company. I'm going to try to be discreet so you don't know which one it is, but I had at one point I had hundreds of people that reported through me.
Wow.
Right? And so I had supervisors that reported under me, and then they all had employees that worked under them. At my peak, I had 1,500 people that worked for me.
Wow.
And I had a lot of rules. And I just told you I'm a freedom guy, right? And so rules really restrict me down. And the piece that impacts me is I was the guy that had to fire people, and I had to crack the whip on a lot of people, right? I had attendance problems. I had, if they weren't following the rules, I was a disciplinarian. And I had a gal who had some attendance troubles going through everything. And I really kind of had a soft spot for this gal. I don't know why, but I did. And so I was trying to work with her and trying to get everything done. And she was pregnant. And she went out on maternity leave. And while she was out on maternity leave, she lost her baby. And long story short, I'm going to skip over a lot of it because it's starting to tear me up, but I had to fire this gal for attendance problems after losing her baby. And it was because I had rules that were enforced that I couldn't change.
Yeah, that's got to be hard.
And at the end of the day, I walked up to my boss and I said, I'm not going to do this. And he said, well, you fire her, or I'm going to fire you, and then I'll fire her. So, I was stuck, right?
Right.
And that moment is really when I decided I'm going to leave that job, and leave corporate America again. And so, because I couldn't be in a situation where I was forced to do something that didn't align with my values. And
right.
So again, freedom, right?
Right. And I would imagine that there's a lot of people out there that are listening into this, and a lot of people in the world where they become disengaged at work. I believe that number is 2/3 of the people in America working. Employees get disengaged. And a big part of it is because what they're doing doesn't align with their values. Is not what they believe in. Doesn't align with their mission, vision, and core values of their life, because it makes them feel like they're doing someone else's vision and not their own.
Yeah.
Right. At what point, Senate, in your life did you develop a vision? Like, did you come out of school after that first check, 14, 15, and says, this is what I want to do with my life? Or how did you figure out that? Did high school have an impact? What was Senate like in high school and going through college? What were the key things? Because there are certain key things that must have impacted your life that can steer us. If you think about one way versus another, right? You're at a Y intersection and you took one side versus the other, and that could completely change the life that you have today. What are some of those key points?
Yeah. I definitely wasn't the same guy that I am today in high school. In fact, I was in school. I was really shy. I was an introvert. And in fact, I guess technically, if you really want to classify me, I technically still am. I force myself to get out of my comfort zone, and get out there and talk to people. And nobody would believe that I'm an introvert, but I guess technically I am. In high school, I was the young kid that always wore black, wore the hat over his eyes, kind of tried to blend in, wallflower. In fact, there's one time I was at a school dance, and I was quite literally the wallflower, right? Over on the wall, avoiding everybody, didn't want to talk to anybody. I can distinctly remember this moment in my life where I was there for an hour, and I don't know that I talked to a single soul. And then I left. And because of that, I was the kid that kind of got in trouble. Went through ups and downs in the legal industry when I was younger, which is another thing that really I learned from. Right, I don't
Right.
ever want to get in trouble with the law because of freedom. Right, the worst thing I could ever imagine is going to prison. That is the opposite of the life that I want. And
Right.
so I experienced a little bit of that when I was a kid. But really, where the vision came was I started getting into self-development, personal development, shortly about the time that high school graduation came. And the way I got into it actually was through network marketing. I'm a proud network marketer in the very beginning stages of my life. I was very good at it. I'm a big believer in network marketing. I think that there's a lot of good companies out there. There's a lot of not good companies out there too, right? So you got to make sure and be careful. But the biggest reason that I'm such a fan of it is because the good ones will pour into you and help you become the best version of yourself. And that's exactly what happened to me. I don't know. I've now there were two really big companies in my life that I was involved in that industry, and both of them really, really pushed personal development. And I soaked it up. I became a personal development junkie, right? I love it. If you talk about vacations or entertainment or any of that kind of stuff, personal development is my education of choice or vacation of choice. You can see from all these books up here.
Yeah.
And I can write them all, cover to cover, line by line. But what I do is I go and I find the key points for each one, and I, take away what needs to be taken from each one. And when that happened, that's really what helped me figure out, who I am, what I want in life, what I don't want in life. And I'm still striving to be that today. I'm trying to find that ultimate version of myself. At the end of the day, that's the number one thing that drives every decision I have. All my core values, the reason I want the freedom is to figure out me, the pinnacle of me. Yeah, one of my mentors that I follow really closely is Ed Milet. Actually known of Ed for well over a decade now. And he has a story that he talks about where his version of heaven is when he walks, through the gates and God introduces him to someone. And that he says, Ed, I want to introduce you to my version of Ed, my dream version, the ideal self. This is God's perfect image of who you could have become on earth. And to him, heaven is, he knows that person and he's a perfect match with that person. And
Wow.
hell is the opposite. Hell is the opposite, where that person is a perfect stranger, doesn't know him at all.
Wow.
And so that really impacted me a lot. And that's really what I'm striving to do, is to try to get better every day.
That's awesome. Wow. That's such a deep way of thinking about it. At what point, Senate, through your personal development, did you start finding who you were or who you could become? Was there like a confusing moment at the beginning where you thought, wow, am I trying to be this person? Am I trying to be that person? Because within a lot of online influence, it's hard, even for myself, right? And this is probably why I'm asking this question, is I'm trying to figure out, who I want to be and the person that I want to be. How do you, what was that journey like?
Yeah. So to me, it's there's a famous internet picture of a statue that's carving itself, and it's like a piece of stone, and inside of it is a human being, and the human being is like literally chipping away at the stone, and to me that's a lot like what that process is. And to do that, I did exactly the kind of things that you're talking about. I would find someone that I liked, and I would try it on for size, is a good way to put it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of online influencers that have impacted me, and that I've are indeed from, rip off and duplicate. We can talk about some of the big ones that are out there, like Gary Vaynerchuk. I tried that for a minute. I tried to be that, really fast talker that, was trying to push out tons and tons of content. I don't even remember what it is, 40 a day or whatever he says it is. And I quickly learned, right, I'm not that guy. I'm just not. Same thing happened with Grant Cardone. When I first discovered Grant Cardone and the 10x rule and all the things that he had, I thought he would like walked on water. I thought it was absolutely amazing. And I tried all that with my team and really tried that persona on and really pushing really, really hard. And I quickly also learned that that's not freedom for me either, right? Trying to be like someone else is not what works for me. So through experimentation and through trying different things, like I try a little bit of Gary, I try a little bit of Ed Milet, right? I try a little bit of Tony Robbins, and I try all these things on, and I figure out what I like and what I don't like. It's almost like going to a buffet. The best part about going to a buffet, in my opinion, is getting a little spoonful of this and a little spoonful of that and a little spoonful of that, and you figure out real fast, man, I like this, I like that, and I don't like this.
Wow. That's kind of what my journey has been like. You try it out, and sometimes it could be confusing at the time. I'll tell you that. Was it at any point confusing to you, or were you picked it out, and as you're trying it, how long or how far along do you believe you've built out to where you are right now in terms of the person that you could be, not so much life-wise where you are, but the clear vision of where you want to be? How far do you believe you are in that journey?
I don't think I'm very far at all.
Okay.
And let me explain. One of my biggest goals in life, like in fact, right now today, my only real specific goal. Okay, so I've got something I'm striving for, and if anybody knows Tony Robbins is like the peak performance person right now. He's the ideal personal development guru right now on stage, right, that everybody follows. And he's got a thing called the Platinum Partnership. And let me explain a little bit about what Tony Robbins is and what he does. Tony Robbins does 4 or 5 events every single year that are the pinnacle of personal development. My wife and I are going to one this year called Unleash the Power Within, and it's supposed to literally take what's inside of you and open it up, right? Well, Platinum Partnership is you get to go to 5 events that year that you join Platinum Partnership, his 5 core events, but then he also does 5 other private events just for Platinum Partnership members. And so you're traveling 10 times a year. You're with Tony Robbins for 10 weeks out of the year. The 5 private trips are with a very elite group of people. And I don't mean elite like rich. I mean elite like very specific people that are trying to hone in on their personal development. They're all like-minded. There's a small group, 30 or 40 of them, and these people, they're 100% focused on their personal development for that year. And so you're really going to build really good friendships and really good, relationships, and you're going to push to that ultimate version of yourself. So the reason I'm bringing this up is I don't yet know what's on the other side of that. I know it's coming. I know I'm going to do it.
Mm.
but and I know it's going to make a big shift in my life, but I don't know what that shift's going to be. So
Mm.
I'm really excited. It's this thing that's got me really giddy. Like I know where I am today, and I know all the things I've done up to this point. But Alex, what's that like? What's going to open up for me after doing that? And so it's coming.
Have you talked to other members who have done the platinum membership and what their outcomes have been and what their transformations have been?
I really haven't. I've seen people and I've seen testimonials, and I know of people that have done it, but none of them have. I've not actually gotten into the circle the people that have done it. I do know several people that know of it and know people that have gone through it, and the changes are absolutely massive in those people. And
Wow.
like I said, it's a total shift from them, right? They become, if they're really good now, they're really great afterwards, type of thing. And I just think it's one more step on that ultimate version that we were talking about.
Right, right. That's on the personal development and the professional side, Senate. Tell us more about like what's family? How have you designed your way of life in terms of family? How does that look like?
Well, I have to admit, I'm not. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and several of them are with my family, right? And I would say that's the biggest way that I've learned is through trial and error with them. You know, I've got 5 children. They're all adults at this point. They all made it to legal adulthood, and for the most part are self-sufficient. Right? They're all in that young adult stage where they're trying to now figure out exactly who they're trying to be and what they want to accomplish. But what I'm working on today is that intentional time with them and intentional way to help each of them grow. I've got one that's a little bit, physically distant from me, and with that one, I'm trying really hard to stay in communication and stay in intentionally talking to them, regularly. And it's just that remembering, right, that if you don't reach out to them, then time will slip by, and eventually, it'll be Christmas again before you know it, right? It'll be
Right.
birthday again before you know it. And I've made that mistake with other loved ones, right? Somebody that you maybe care about deeply, but then you don't see regularly, and then it's just kind of like that saying, "Out of sight, out of mind." So that one is very intentional, like trying to do that. And the ones that live closer, similarly, right? It's okay. So you're right across town. Let's get together. Come over for dinner. Come over for board games. Come over for a chat. Let's just not talk when it's about money, right? Let's talk when it's about life and future and goals. Being intentional, I think, is the number one key.
When they were children, right? Did you walk them through what life was going to be like or play like life games? Have you always talked about self-development with them as you have done it, or was it a little different?
Yeah, probably I talked too much about it. And that was one of probably my mistakes. And I actually said to my children, if you ask my kids what is my famous line, my famous quote, I would say, you can always learn something from every situation and everyone. Sometimes it's what to do, and sometimes it's what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so my wife will tell you I'm always talking about teachable moments and, what lesson did you learn from this, that type of thing. And I actually got to the point, I think, where it started to annoy them and started to bother them. And that was one of my mistakes is I would think that it shut them down, right? And
Right.
so I would say in hindsight, if I had it all to do over again, I would try to figure out ways to do it more subtly. So I was almost too much in their face about it.
Right. But it's hard not to be, right? When you're all about it, it's I would think where with my 10-year-old, right, there are times where I would be interface about a lesson and really get to it. But at the same time, you see it in her eyes that she's like, oh God, here we go again. You know, I'm still trying to figure out how to make it, how to intentionally make it so that she absorbs it, but not get to the point where she's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
because kids do that.
Oh yeah. Well, so a couple things about it. So number one, I can see that the lessons I was teaching have sunk in. Now that they're adults and they're out there living the life, I can see the things I was trying to teach that did sink in, right? So I can see them doing it, seeing them make the actions. I've had my sister said to one of them, "Man, you sound just like your dad," which I personally took as a compliment, right?
Yeah. Like, yes, I did my part.
Yeah, exactly. I guess what I would say is I would try to figure out a way to make it more like a game. Think about the game, the cash. What is it called? Cash flow, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot very similar. The game Cash Flow is a lot like the book Cash Flow Quadrant, right? Mm-hmm. But it teaches the concepts through play, and so it's a little bit less in your face. Very similar lessons though, right? So, I'm no expert on this. I did not do it well. I'm just telling you, I would try to figure out a way to do it without doing it so intentionally. One thing I like that you're doing, Alex, and I've really thought that is great for you is to bring your daughter to the events that you're doing. Exposure, bring them to multifamily events, bring them to personal development events, and get them around those people that are growing so quickly and doing all the things. And I think what you're doing with that is great.
Yeah, because I just wanted to have her there. And other people have asked me, friends from college or high school who don't really understand what we're doing. They'll ask, why does she go? Does she just sit there and she's just so bored? I said, well, she has her coloring books, she has her books. I said, all I need for her to do is once in a while look up for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. You see, and that's all I want her to do, is to watch her pay attention for that moment of time, and just to see her brain going, this is interesting. Of all people, I tell you, when we were at Byright earlier last year, it was Bill Ham that caught her attention. And I said, "What is it about him?" She says, "Oh, he speaks kind of funny." He
is kind of funny. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, "Wow," and that caught her attention.
Yeah,
so
sure.
you never know, right?
Well, and even just hearing the conversations, right? Like I love talking to people. When I can have a conversation about numbers with multiple commas in them, and they don't get nervous or they don't get scared, right? And so elevating that consciousness to, it's not weird to talk about money, or it's not weird to talk about, future or goals or big dreams. I'm the guy, Alex. You and I could talk about any topic, right? There is not a single topic in my life that's taboo.
Right.
And a lot of people aren't like that. A lot of people have so many things that are off limits that you can't talk about. And it's mainly because they're not comfortable with themselves in that arena. They're not comfortable with how they will respond or what they think. To me, I'm comfortable with who I am, and I can talk about anything you want.
Was there a period of time where you weren't comfortable and you had a shift where you said, you know what, I need to be comfortable?
Yeah, actually, so the shift for me, the thing that got me comfortable in that, I actually took a course, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People course. So I read the book and all that kind of thing beforehand, but this course was phenomenal. It was I think 10 weeks long, and for every Wednesday for 10 weeks, I would go to this course with a group of 20 other people, and we would go through one section of that book, but not just read it like a book club. Like we had homework to do, and we were acting on those lessons. And I had to be very introspective about a lot of different things. And that's what really shifted my ability going through that. That was a pivotal part in my personal development. And because of that event, I've fallen in love with those types of courses, and I'm always out there looking for new ones.
How much time do you think every year you spend on courses or events that you've gone to for personal development?
Interesting. I would say it's at least 10% of my time. Probably more. Probably 15% of my time. If you count like travel and it might even be more than that. This month, for example, I'm gone 2 out of the 4 weeks of this month.
2 out of 4 weeks.
Yeah. And
Wow.
the majority of it is, they're conferences and networking events specifically for real estate, but they're the biggest reasons for personal development and self-growth.
Right.
And then the same thing is again in March, where I'll be gone 2 out of the 4 weeks. All February, but that's a big thing for me. In fact, so much so, it's so important for me to personally grow that I wanted to give that same experience to other people. And so my wife and I actually started an event here in our town called the Idaho Business Summit, where what we do is we bring those kind of personal development events here, right? So not everyone's going to do what I've done, right? Not everyone's going to go out and travel and focus on personal development, spend all the time and all the money and all the sacrifice to see all of that. And so we wanted to bring those types of things here to our hometown. And so that's the biggest motivation for that behind that event was I wanted to have everybody in my town to have that same opportunity.
How long ago did you start at that event?
2023 will be our third year, so 2020,
Wow.
yeah, it was. So this will be the third year. May it's always the second Wednesday in May.
Always the second Wednesday in May.
Yep, May 10th this year.
Okay. Wow, I have to look into that. That's very.
We've got great speakers we bring in. Luke Wren's coming this year. This will be his second year that he's come to this event. And if you guys don't know Luke Wren, you should look him up. He's a personal development speaker. Has worked with Tony Robbins for a long time. Big inspirational guy.
That's awesome. That you host your own event. Man, it's you go through your journey, and at what point, Senate? I know that real estate is such a big thing for you. At what point did you realize? Because there's so many people that their job tells them to invest in 401ks, IRAs, right, stocks, and the fluctuations and the volatility in that. It's been crazy, and people, a lot of them don't know how to get into real estate. How did you get tapped into real estate, and then get into multifamily later on?
Well, you're spot on that. These people are all told and taught one thing or another, and the thing is, the problem with what most people do, what the masses do, usually that's not the best way to go, right? I can tell you countless stories of people I know whose retirement were just absolutely devastated because they were all in on one thing that didn't work out for them, right? My dad, for example, was doing extremely well, and he was set to retire right after 2008. Well, all his money was in the stock market, and all that hammered it. So he didn't get to retire in 2009, 2010 like he thought he was going to, right? So he had to work another, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years after that to try to rebuild and try to get to the point, right? So my journey into real estate started actually back in 2009. And I had a rental house that I couldn't sell. So it was a single family house. I lived in this house and I needed to move. I had a very specific reason I had to move. So I went and I bought another house. Now I had 2 mortgages, 2 houses. Put the one on the market. It just didn't go anywhere. No one was buying houses at that time, right? So what do you do with a house you can't sell? Well, you rent it out. And that's exactly what I did. And when I sat down and I had a couple of months of rent come in, I just looked at the cash flow and I was like, I just fell in love. Holy moly!
Right.
What does this mean? What is going to happen here? And I figured that if I could rent another one, or if I could do it once, I could do it again. And so I
Right.
bought another house, and then another one, and then I bought a junker, right? Just a piece of crap house that nobody would ever live in, but I bought it real cheap. So I fixed it up. And before I could rent that one out, somebody offered me a bunch of money for it. So now I flipped a house. And I figured out I could flip, a couple houses and then buy another one. And I just got into this single family really, really deep. And then I discovered duplexes and triplexes and a few fourplexes. And I built this single family and small multifamily portfolio up to this point where I had 2 full-time jobs. I had my normal business that I was using to pay all of my bills. I was in the financial services industry, helping people invest in that exact thing you and I just talked about, that stock market, 401k, retirement, all those type of things. And I saw the fluctuations and everything they were having. And at the same time, I was over here investing in rental properties and houses and that type of thing.
Right.
And finally got to the point where that single family portfolio, I just couldn't grow it anymore. I was maxed out. I was out. I ran out of time was the biggest thing, was not fitting my freedom goal, right? Also, I couldn't scale anymore because I ran out of capital. And most importantly, I ran out of lenders. There's so many rules when you're in the single family space about how many loans you can have and how much you have to put down and all these different regulations. And so I needed to do something different. And so I started researching commercial real estate. And I spent a lot of time learning everything I could possibly learn about commercial real estate. I looked at triple net. I looked at apartments. I looked at assisted living. I looked at storage units. You name it, I probably looked at it. Some things I looked at for 2 weeks. Some things I looked at for 2 months and to try to learn. And apartments really made the most sense to me because I had all of that previous rental experience. So that's when I decided to go full into multifamily. And I joined Jake and Gino and really started researching everything I could possibly do. And that's when I decided to sell all of my single family portfolio and move it into multifamily.
Wow.
And I've been gung-ho on that ever since. When I discovered that I could now take a multifamily asset and do what's called a syndication, where I could now pool people's money and take it out of something that I really didn't believe in, like the stock market. As I mentioned earlier, I was selling stock investing before, and I can now take that same skill set and help people invest in something I really believe in, which is real estate. I really, really fell in love with syndication, and that's been my focus ever since, was taking a really big building, right, that nobody can buy on their own. Well, most people can't buy on their own, let's be real. And taking that out there to the masses, where almost anybody can now own a piece of this building. And I just adore giving that opportunity to everybody. Just the other day, 2 days ago, I was talking to somebody, and they said to me, there's no way I can ever invest in a building like that. And I said, well, you want to bet? And so we actually sat down and we talked about all the details. And yeah, this person's barely going to be able to meet the minimums, but they're going to be able to meet the minimums and they're going to be able to invest. And it totally blew their mind.
Right. That's the big thing that a lot of people don't realize real estate investing is they believe that they have to go out and take down the building on their own. But not realizing, and then because some people believe that it's so unreachable, they don't even dive in to what is possible, because they already put a wall up and says, you know what, that's not for me. That's for all the big corporate guys out there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the biggest problem we have as syndicators is educating the masses on the opportunities that exist. Now it's not for everybody, right? You need to have some sophistication and some assets and that type of thing. But if anybody can learn it, right? Anybody can take the time and learn, and that's something I'm really focused on, is teaching that. So this year I actually launched a course on my website. It's real estate investing 101, for specifically how does somebody become a passive investor? How does
Oh, wow.
somebody invest into the things that I'm working on? And that's my number one goal for this year is to educate people and to spread the word on what it takes, how to do it, that anybody can do it, right?
Is that a course that you put together that anyone can take, or do they have to have a certain level of sophistication already?
Yeah, no, anybody can take it, right? They just go to my website and under resources, it's Investing 101 course, and it's
Okay,
all the information is right there.
cool.
And I'm going to continually pump out more and more resources on that website just to educate anybody. Anybody can do it.
So what you're saying is, say if someone who's investing in IRAs and 401ks, and they thought about it, they don't know what it's like. They go to your website. What's your website, Senate?
It's senateskridge.com.
Okay, and we'll put that in the details. And they go on there, and what do? They just put in their emails. What's the monthly fee? It's like a few $100s, or what's that like?
You know, I've had a lot of people tell me that it should be $100, right? But I actually give it away for free.
You give it away for
So
free?
yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
so you go to my website, it's
Oh wow.
www.senateskridge.com. Go to resources and then click on course. You're going to put in your name, your email address, your phone number, and then it's going to send you this course for free.
Now,
Free of charge.
anytime, and I'll just be the advocate here, right? When someone does something for free, people will ask, well, what's the catch? So Senate, we didn't plan for this, right? Let me ask you this. Like what's the catch? What's the big why are you doing it for free?
Well, so no reason. I try to help people. I try to help educate people, right? So you are going to get, when you do that, you'll subscribe to my newsletter, right? So once a month you'll get an email from me that's with any updates I have, any new things that are coming out that I have, any deals that I have coming down the road, and that's probably the biggest. What do I get out of it, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking for people that want to invest. And so if I can take somebody that doesn't know what they're investing in and
Right.
educate them, right, and make them an educated investor, then they're more likely to invest with me later on. And
Mm.
so, yeah, you're going to get a couple emails from me, maybe 2 or 3 a month, with my newsletter, and if I have a deal coming up, anything like that. But other than that, no catch.
I mean, I just think of it as if I was an investor who wants to learn it, I would want to go and sign up for the course, learn it. And then once I do learn it, then you pretty much answer what's next, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're saying, hey, then there's newsletters that we're going to show you that you can potentially get to invest in these deals. That's how I started Senate,
Yeah.
actually. I was at a conference and they talked about syndications. I'd had no idea what it was. I started educating myself on it. And because the conference that I went to had syndications, I eventually started investing with them. And it's been a great experience since. But at the beginning, it was like, oh, you just had to dive in, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like, you could ask for references and whatnot, but ultimately you just got to dive in. And that's so cool that you made a course that opens up that education platform. So, I know that I'll be definitely sending folks to that course. You want to learn more? Just go take Senate's course.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So anything else that, in the real estate space, you're now a coach
Yeah.
for Jake and Gino. And I remember the first time you told me that was exciting for me. I was like, oh, dang, said as a coach. We got a coach in the accountability pot here. Who can say that, right? But how did that come about? Because you dove in and it didn't take a long time.
Yeah, I think the reason they came to me was they saw that I really dove in, like you said. I took everything that they had and I really absorbed everything that they had. I went to every event,
Hmm.
and I always helped people naturally. something that comes naturally to me. I want to give back and I want to help people. I'm the guy that holds the door when he can. Like somebody that I'll sometimes wait a little too long because I'm the guy holding the door and kind of regret. Oh, they're going a little slower than I thought. Right, they're further away, but I want to give that opportunity to help people. And so naturally, I was already helping people. I was the guy that would welcome everybody into the group, and I would set up calls with them and give as much value as I possibly could. And there's actually a really great book that really aligns with that value to me. It's called The Go-Giver. And I realized when I read that book that this is a natural thing for me. But the more you give, right, the more you're going to get in life. And maybe not directly from the person, right? Like I help you, Alex, and do something for you. Maybe you don't in turn do something directly back for me. But I do believe that you'll get it down the road. And I don't care if you call it karma or if you call it God or you call it the universe or whatever you want to call it. The more you give, the more you get.
Yeah.
And I always believed that. And so I think they saw that in me, right? And so when they came to me and asked me, hey, do you want to be a coach for our group? It was a perfect fit for me. It was like, yes, I do. And I walked immediately into that. And I accepted all the training that they had because there's a ton of training and resources and masterminds for all the coaches. And I really dove again into that resource. And funny story about it, after my first month of actually coaching students, they reached out to me and said, Send I need your bank account, your W-9 or whatever so that we can pay you. And I literally said, I get paid?
This is a paid position? Wow.
I didn't know, right?
Yeah, you missed that part in the contract. The one part that most people zone in on, you completely missed it.
And I really think that that's important because if you go into something with the right intentions, you're going to get rewarded in the background. You're going to get taken care of. And by the way, they pay me really well, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, and I don't think that if I started with that, if I would have started with, well, how much does it pay? I don't think I'd have the position.
Right. I resonate with that a lot, the giving and it coming back. A mentor of mine early on in the medical space has told me, he says, his one quote is, the hole you get through will never be bigger than the hole you give through. And I said, I didn't understand what he was saying at the beginning. He says, let that sink in for a moment. Because it was at a point in time where practice was definitely more of a struggle. And I said, man, I feel like I'm just giving and giving and giving, and it doesn't seem like monetarily it's coming back. And that's when he threw that quote at me. And he says, it may take time, but the patience, he's like, your generation don't have patience. What he said to me, he says, you guys get everything so instant. The instant gratification. He says, just look at the microwave, for example. That's so instant. You could never heat things up that quickly back in the day. And he says, yeah, it's look at that. And I took that to heart. So I resonate 100% with that sentiment. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that quote.
Yeah. It's are you working on anything else? anything else in your life besides the Tony Robbins, the coaching Jake and Gino, the self-development, the syndications that you're working on, right? Anything else that has been big that you've been working on that you like to share?
We really kind of went full circle on everything. This year, it's really about getting the message out and educating the masses. So everything I'm working on, I do have a couple other things that will be coming out. I'm not ready to release them yet, but they'll be on my website and in my newsletter, right? So I'm going to do a lot more education about real estate and how it can be accessed. by a lot of people. You mentioned IRAs and 401ks and things like that. There's ways that people can invest in the syndications that I do inside IRAs and 401ks. And so one of the things I want to do is an education piece around that, right? Teaching people 401ks don't have to just be stocks, and bonds or whatever they do. You can go buy this big apartment building inside your 401k, your IRA, even your HSA.
Wow. Even your
And so,
HSA.
yeah, HSA. Yeah.
I thought 401ks and IRAs was blowing my mind. Now you're talking about HSAs.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, that's the thing is most people, they don't know about these resources. So this is going to be the year of I'm going to pump out tons of educational resources. I'm going to bring in other experts to help me with that. And there's going to be a lot of that kind of thing coming out. So.
Wow. Wow. Now, of course, what is the best way for people to reach out to you? Is it Messenger? Is it LinkedIn? Where are people going to reach out to you the best way?
Yeah, I'm on all the social medias. I'm the only Senate Eskridge, but the best place for me is my website. Just go to senateeskridge.com. You can send me a message right there on that website that comes directly into me. You can sign up for those educational courses that we talked about. There's even a spot you can schedule a meeting with me right on my website. So
awesome. And what is the one thing, Senate, if people who are listening to this, sometimes we all need help, right? What's certain things that you're looking for? Maybe people who are listening to this can say, you know what, I can help. I like Senate. He's a solid dude. I jive with him. I'm going to help him out. I want to help him out as well. I want to reach out. What is something that you like to get help from?
the biggest thing I need help with right now is introductions. If you know somebody that wants to learn about real estate investing or is investing in real estate already, right? Somebody that would possibly come along and help me buy some of these big buildings we're talking about, I'd love an introduction to them.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Senate, thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed it. I've learned more about you than I have before. There are new things every time with you. Very educational, very inspiring as well. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alex. It was good to be here.
All right. See you later.
So for those of you who really enjoy watching Senate and other real estate professionals on our podcast on how they have designed their life and literally quit their W-2s and now is doing real estate professionally, full-time, watch here and here for other videos. We really enjoy seeing you.